Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, in today's topic, I'm once again diving into the world of Sonic the Hedgehog. So I was struggling with an idea for my next video, but I just decided, why not? I want to do another character analysis. I was going to do one on a Ninjago villain, but I thought my last video was Ninjago, so I figured I'd do this. So without further ado, let's do it to it. We're gonna go over why Dr. Eggman is the perfect villain. So I'm just gonna go over a bunch of different incarnations of the character, starting off with Sonic SatAM, where he's just Robotnik here. Julian and Cantobo are now known as Ivo Robotnik. This is a pretty great version of the character. Sure, he's not really what we get these days, but because here it's much like it is in Archie, which we'll get to later. He's just evil and rules the world. That's it. He rules the world. There's none of this, well, he's trying to take over. No, he rules everyone, everything pretty much. And thanks to Jim Cummings' voice, vocal performance, it really sells how terrifying he's supposed to be and how evil he is with his black eyes and red pupils. And he just looks mean. And he's always usually sitting in his chair when he's not. He's always right up to close to people. Like whenever he's near Snively, he goes right up to him and starts talking in his creepy voice, and Snively starts sweating. He's afraid he's gonna kill him or something, and he would too. I mean, there's the line of, "And if you mess up anything, well, Snively, I'll finally have the paperweight I've always wanted." Wish I could do that voice. Whenever I read an Archie comic, I imagine his voice. He's perfect as just this horrible, evil character, because that's it. He's the standard type of villain, the classic type of villain, the ones I like. He doesn't need to be a twist villain or be sympathetic or even understandable, which can work a lot of the time in the cases of Tai Lung and Kung Fu Panda. He's just evil. The one complaint I do have with this version of the character is that I don't really feel his rivalry with Sonic. I mean, he's always complaining about the rodent. Yeah, and you never really see Sonic and Eggman or Robotnik interact that much. And when you do, it just doesn't have quite the same weight as it does in, well, even the worst incarnations of the franchise still feel like they have more weight than this, but it's still a really great version of the character. Then there's, of course, Archie, the pinnacle of Sonic the Hedgehog, of course. Definitely the best version of Eggman. It's funny, when the comic starts out, he has that SatAM design, but the comic is super silly like Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, so if you read it in Jim Cummings' voice, you're going to hear him say all these ridiculous lines, but the comic eventually does not pull its punches in the fact that this guy is horrible and evil and took over the world and turned into a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Ignoring the Robo-Robotnik stuff, which, well, actually just makes him even worse, because here we see that this is an Eggman that every single thing that happened to the one we knew before he died happened to this guy. Things just changed during that big final battle. So everything that the Robotnik we knew, like taking over Mobotropolis, taking over the world, roboticizing people, this guy still did. He just won in his dimension, roboticized himself, and traveled to the main dimension of the comic just so he could kill another version of Sonic and fill the hole in both of their lives. He says that the hero needs a villain, which we really got to see, especially during Carl Boulder's run, just how demonic he is. I mean, one of the final issues before Ian Flood takes over, which Ken Penders wrote that, but when Sonic says, "Why should we trust an alliance with you?" he says, "Well, at least with me, you know what devil you're getting." And yeah, keeping the red pupils and the black eyes really helps. I mean, I'm sure many of you have seen this image of him and Snively. And let's not forget, this is the guy that would lock up his nephew, who'd served him faithfully for years in a dungeon and never let him out. The guy that just didn't even really see Sonic or his friends as a threat. We saw Sonic as a bit of a threat, but he thought he could always win. And then he just shows up, destroys the city that Sonic and his friends were fighting for years and years, beats up Sonic, makes fun of him, humiliates him, and then says, "I'm going to go back to my city, suck the life out of all your captured friends, and they're going to die, and you can do nothing about it." of course he's stopped, but well, one, it just shows how persistent this version of the character is. He's just really menacing the whole time. He never pulls his punches. Now you may be wondering, shouldn't Eggman also be comedic? Which, yeah, because especially in the gag era, he is comedic because, well, it's the gag era. But even here, well, it's mostly in Carl Bowler's run, or the way past insane era, as some of the fans would call it. It's more like there, he just had this kind of dark comedy-esque, weird, creepy humor type thing that just spread to the entire comic of all these wacky, dark scenarios that would keep happening. Then there's Sonic Boom. Easily the most comedic version of the character, but also the one time where making him more comedic actually works. This is my second favorite version of Eggman, second only to Archie, pre-boot Archie anyway. Because Sonic Boom knows what it is. It's not like Sonic Lost World where it's trying to be serious, but it also shows all these ridiculous has all these ridiculous dumb lines that are really hard to take seriously and awful writing. Same thing with Sonic Forces, but here, well, one, it's actually funny, and two, the voice acting is a lot better than it is in most games. Really, any game actually. And since this show, yeah, again, it knows exactly what it wants to be. So this version of Eggman just fits perfectly. I always get a laugh at whenever his scenes with Orbot and Cubot, or how Eggman always says that his battles with Sonic are totally evenly matched. And he really knows that they're not evenly matched, obviously. In fact, he knows he's probably going to lose every time. He just keeps doing this non-stop. It just makes him entertaining to see this guy that just continuously tries and fails over and over again. And he's even pretty funny and even likable here because he's not a horrible supervillain. He's really more of a nuisance. I mean, it's not like okay, at the finale he sort of causes the near end of the world, but that was really more of a one-time thing. He's, again, just a nuisance, really. And yeah, in the episodes he gets focused on, you begin to like him and see that he's really just a regular guy, I guess. This is just his job. I mean, he may as well be punching in a time car, which is something that actually happens in one episode. Then there are the adventure games. The pinnacle of Eggman in the games, anyway. In SA1, you know everything you need to just from his introduction. He's a crazy, evil dictator type guy that wants to destroy Station Square and turn it into Eggman Land, the ultimate city, where I will rule all! He doesn't mind releasing Chaos, the god of destruction, this ancient water monster with incredible power, because he thinks he can control it. And when, of course, that doesn't work out, he has an entire egg carrier too, which is very impressive considering the actual egg carrier that is one of the hub worlds in the games, where even though he's the only living person on it technically, he has a swimming pool and all these maids and a few bathrooms probably, and all these rooms and so much space for no reason whatsoever other than just fuel his ego, I guess. And even after Chaos nearly kills him and beats up him and Knuckles, he still persists, I gotta go defeat him. And then SA2, well, yeah, best version of Eggman in the games. We get to hear about his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. He's manipulative and cunning and evil, but he's still willing to work with Sonic and everyone else at the end if it means saving the entire world from being destroyed. Because after all, if the world's destroyed, what's he gonna do? And there's of course the scene at the end with Tails, where he says, "As a child, I looked up to my grandfather because of all the great things he accomplished in his life. He was my hero, and I wanted to be a great scientist like him. But did he really mean to destroy us?" Because this moment doesn't make Eggman sympathetic. It doesn't even make him understandable. We just really see that this is why he wanted to be a scientist. And he didn't become evil because his grandfather was. He didn't know his grandfather was secretly evil. He just became evil because. Of course, until Sonic Frontiers gives us some useless backstory in his egg memos which imply that he had a neglected childhood or something, which isn't really important to anything, nor is that something we needed to know. That I already kind of rambled on this in my video Sonic's Future Worries Me, but I said that really exists just to exist. It doesn't tell us anything important. Especially since it really just feels like a way for Eggman to mention Maria, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. Then there's Sonic 06. Eggman is okay here. The problem with Eggman and Sonic 06 is the same problem Sonic himself has, which is personality-wise anyway, which is that both of their characters are just so boring. Sonic isn't the cool, cocky speedster he's supposed to be. He just stands around and is nice to people and says, "Don't worry, I'm gonna stop Eggman. I'm gonna save you." That's pretty much Sonic's entire character in that game. And Eggman is just, "I am evil mastermind," which is very boring. I mean, Mike Pollock did a good job as always, delivery of his lines, but when you combine it with his weird design he has, where I remember what Jebzone said. How come Shadow just looks taller and more detailed while Dr. Eggman looks like an actor playing him in a live action movie? Huh, that's actually pretty accurate now. Yeah, I don't know why he kind of looks like Jim Carrey in the second movie, but whatever. At least he's not turned into an absolute joke here. He's just a guy, because again, I just talked about how great he is when he's just a super menacing, horrible villain. And here, yeah, he's just an evil villain, but he's just too boring. There's no showmanship to it like there was before. There's no guy plastering statues of himself everywhere with these crazy looking robots. There's no guy yelling at his henchmen or something. Then there are the movies. Oh boy. I think in the first movie, considering what they were trying to do, it was fine. I liked it. And I was in the theater when this came out. Second day it was out. During that post-credit scene, I was so excited when you see him with the goggles and he's got a huge mustache and he's bald and he's wearing more of a red game suit and he says, "I'll be back by Christmas." Ah! Then in the second movie, he has lost a ton of weight. He wears a slightly more game-accurate costume. Well, actually, I'd say his costume in the second movie is less game-accurate than it was in the first movie. I know that in the third movie he's finally going to have more of a game accurate jacket. He's going to be super fat. But I just don't like this. Because Jim Carrey just plays every other one of his roles. And he's just completely insane. And sure, Eggman is supposed to be crazy. And he captures the showmanship aspect. But he's just so insane that just becomes the entire character. He's an insane comedian. Except he's not really funny, and it's kind of hard. He's not super menacing either. He just stands around and yells crazy things. That is not Eggman. Now he's just insane guy. And there's Frontiers, where, okay, in Frontiers he's not even in it that much, so it's kind of hard to judge this, but what did they do to him? I mean, it kind of is dumb when he's told by Sage that if you don't get out of cyberspace, you are going to die, and the only way to get out and save all of us would be to have an alliance with Sonic. And he says, "No way," and she says, "But when you had an alliance with him before, you were able to stop the Arc and Neo Metal Sonic," and he says, "Those alliances were purely out of desperation." Yeah, so is this. It's just drama for the sake of drama. And then making him, I don't know if sympathetic would be the right word, but the entire thing he has with Sage is just so stupid. I mean, what before in the games could ever tell you that Eggman really cared about his creations? He just saw them as a means to an end. He was just, even when he was portrayed as more comedic, he was still just a mean guy only in it for himself. This just fails on every level, especially if they're trying to make the games more connected. Why are you making his character even less consistent than it was before? I mean, I think I've said this before. It would have been more interesting if his dynamic with Sage were just Sage thinks of Eggman as her father, but he just sees her as a useful creation. And when she sacrifices herself at the end, he's just thinking, "Oh, that's too bad. She was pretty useful." It'd make it ironic, really, because she would never even realize that Eggman didn't actually love her as a daughter because he's Eggman. Why would he? Sure, the Final Horizon ending. Then for that, when she survived, you could have just made him saying, "Well, you've been pretty useful. Okay, come on." Instead of just, "Time to go home, dear daughter." That's not Eggman. In conclusion, if we've learned anything from this, it's that the perfect villain is a guy who can just be super mean and cruel, but can also be funny and entertaining. Because in Sad AM, even when he or Archie, even when he is horrible and menacing and cruel, he's still entertaining to read and watch. He leaves you with an impact, and at the end of the day, that's what a villain should be, in my opinion, at least. I don't know about you. I mean, other villains work for different reasons. They can't all be like this, but they're just my thoughts. Well, comment down below. What did you think of this? And see y'all next time. As always, keep on juicing.